Dr. Hester Young is a higher education professional and an educator. Plus, she's an author. Now she wants to become the next board member for Dorchester District 2. I talk one-on-one with Dr. Young for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dr. Hester Young, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I appreciate it greatly. I know that you are an educator, a higher education professor, a program development and an administrator, a life coach, and of course an author. Let me ask you this, Dr. Young. With all of this under your belt, why Dorchester District 2? Why now?
Well, I'm independent, and I've always had a heart for volunteering and helping in the community. But my passion is workforce education and development. And there's a need. You know, Norman Vincent Peale once said, find a need and meet it. So in Dorchester 2, there's a need for a voice for workforce education and development on the board. I will be the only professional voice that could speak to that profile for a South Carolina graduate. And we have that already established. And it is dripping with career development. We are looking in the 21st century to make sure that our students are career ready and college ready by the time they graduate. A mandate.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Dr. Young. What is the state of career development right now around South Carolina?
Well, you know, South Carolina, like I said, has this profile for a graduate. And the schools that are in the top 10 in South Carolina actually are practicing this. Every aspect of their curriculum has, a career planning or a career development flavor to it. So we are now in DD2, number 12. We used to be number 2, number 3 in the state. Now we're number 12. So I want to help us get back to our, in the top 5. So I think that this incentive will help us.
And what other incentives would help the district DD2 right now?
Well, of course, this is number 1 for me. The other is, teacher retention and recruitment. I have a background also in human resource development, and that training has given me also a voice on how to recruit and how to retain employees. And we have a problem with teacher retention and teacher recruitment. And not only teachers, but bus drivers, just employees overall. The culture has a lot to do with that. Money, of course, can be, given to folks, but money is a short-term motivator, and folks will leave you anyway if you are not treating them, if the culture and the environment is not supportive of what they're doing. And teachers really need to be supportive. They supported. They want to have a voice at the decision-making table. They're the ones who are in the classroom. So that's another thing. And I think the focus on standardized testing is the percentage of focus on standardized testing is another issue. I think that the error for spending a lot of time on helping students pass tests, particularly standardized tests, that has gone. If you talk to any college in the nation, they are giving students an option these days of taking that SAT or that ACT. And, they have that entrance formula, and the standardized testing is carries very little weight, because they have found out that a student is not successful just because they can take a test, but they are successful because they can write a personal statement, and they can communicate. and they can develop relationships. So that letter of recommendation in high school is very, very important. So those are some of the things that I'm focused on.
And I want to talk to you more about that in depth in just a second. But let me ask you, how many relationships have you developed within DD2?
Many relationships. I live in a neighborhood where there are retired principal from DD2, retired teachers from DD2, and current teachers from DD2. I try to pop into council meetings and county council meetings whenever I can, to keep abreast of what's going on, and I'm always on the website, either listening or attending, the school board meetings.
Yes. So you talked about this earlier, but let me ask you this, Dr. Young. How many employees are there currently in DD2?
We're the largest employer in Dorchester County. We have nearly 4,000 employees with a budget of approximately between 260 million dollars, and that's more than I think the county itself. So we have a substantial budget and a large employer, just a major responsibility.
Now,
so I take it seriously.
Yes, ma'am. And let me ask you this. How would you align the budget to address the needs of the students in the district if you were on the board, say, next year?
Well, I want I'm moving education forward and committed to matching the needs with whatever is in the budget. Someone once said, "Show me your budget and I'll tell you what your priorities are." And our priorities right now, number one, we want to provide access to education for all students in the district. That's number one. We want to make sure that, that they can get to school, because if we don't have bus drivers, they can't have access. That's one thing. And when they get to school, if we don't have teachers to teach them, that's a major problem, because that's going to affect the number, the quality of education. So teacher recruitment and retention, bus drivers, and just employee recruitment and retention overall.
Let me talk to you about that in a few, but let me ask you this. What are the three top schools right now in Dorchester District 2?
Well, all of them are wonderful. How about that? All of them are wonderful. That's a good question. I think when you look at top schools, I think the community would just look at the high schools, the Fort Dorchester and the Ashley Ridge and the Somerville, because those are the schools that really get the attention, the high schools. See, but my focus is to concentrate on all schools and bringing this career development focus to all children from kindergarten to 12th grade. It is more important for us to start with kindergarten, because by the time when they get to 8th grade currently, that's when they have to make that decision about what path they want to go for the next 4 years, which is high school. So we want to bring all of our school up to excellence,
And speaking of which, Dr. Young, let me ask you this. Speaking of high schools, what is the graduation rate right now in Somerville High?
It is, the graduation rate overall is 90%, 91%. And when we talk about graduation rate, it all sounds good, but I don't get excited if I don't know how many students are satisfied with the education that they receive after graduation. How many of them actually are career and college ready? We have 44 a little over $44 million in scholarships. But what I want to also focus on is quantifying how many of those went through the Career and Technology Center. How many of them actually went to college? How many of them actually used that scholarship? Because one child can get 4 or 5 scholarships. So it's really not telling you. And if you have 90 or 91% graduation rate, what good is that if the majority of them can't read beyond the 3rd grade level? Something is pulling us down from the top 5 in the state to number 12. And we want to focus on that.
So how many students at Somerville High School are actually career ready?
That's what we want to find out. That's exactly my mission, is to find out how many are career ready. We don't know. I can't tell by the website. I know how many are enrolled in career ready.
Sure.
You know, they may have about 7,000 to 9,000 out of 25,000 enrolled,
right.
But we don't have the blessed assurance that they all belong on that track, because we have not really infused this career readiness from kindergarten to that 8th grade when they have to make the decision. You see, they make that decision in the 8th grade, but we don't have a track record of making everything, introducing in kindergarten age appropriate career readiness and fostering it along the way until they get to 8th grade. We don't know. And that's what my voice will do, is to help foster that plan, so that when they get to 8th grade, they will be in a better position to make those decisions when they sit down with the guidance counselor and their parents. That's the time. The ideal thing also would be to introduce a career planning course that has everything in that course, that teaches them when do you start visiting colleges, or when do you start, why is it important? Because we have already started that fostering in kindergarten, so now we can talk to them about college, or what track, trade school, or, right. That's the time when you can introduce these things. Because right now, our timeline, one of the things I saw is that, at 12th grade, the thing on that list of to-do list for 12th grade is to, make sure you begin visiting colleges in 12th grade. And I'm here to tell you that if you start visiting colleges in 12th grade, you're behind the curve. You're behind the curve. By the 11th grade, you should have your selections in mind. You should know the track that you want to follow. At least at that juncture in your life, you're behind. 11th grade is when you should have your early acceptance application submitted. If you don't do that, then you're going to be, in a pool of applications at the last minute. And that's something we don't want to continue to let our young people believe, that it's okay to wait until the last minute to do things. So, these are my thoughts, and these are my plan. It's a better plan, and I think that it will help Dee to elevate to that number, to top 5, at least top 5 in the state. Why not? We're in a state that's number 46 in the nation, so we have the capability and the people to help us get that rating back up. And I think that my voice as a career professional, as a workforce educator, can help them do that.
And unfortunately, due to Zoom time constraints, I have to move forward with the interview.
Okay.
But let me ask you, we know the demographics of Somerville High School, but what's the poverty index there for 2019 to 2020, for instance, that semester?
Well, 34.9% was the last that I saw. I thought I looked that up a couple of days ago. About 34 are considered to be economically disadvantaged. 34.9. 43% of our students are on free or reduced lunch.
Right.
A little over free or reduced lunch. So that can give you a little idea.
So let me ask a follow-up. What are the other underlying economic conditions do you see within that population for District DD2?
Well, the only, when you talk about 34.9%, I mean, that's huge for our district. I think we need to pay attention to that. When we devise curriculum, when we put forth programming, we need to keep those things in mind, because some of those conditions are attached to parents who have to work around the clock. They are not able to come to board meetings. They are not able to keep on top of things. And one of the things that we could do is to give them information. You can be impoverished just because you don't have just the information of what is going on in the school. So I propose to close that communication gap by being available at events and having mini town hall meetings, or just being available when I can to answer questions for parents who are not in the loop, who are not able to come to board meetings. And
Yes, ma'am. Let me ask you this. What percentage of students, Dr. Young, at Somerville High School, that is, actually scored a C or higher on the algebra, biology, or English gateway course assessments for the end of course for 2020-2021 semester?
Right. Now, we have more high schools. I'll just tell you, this is lumped all of our high schools. And we've got to do better with this too. 53% with math, and we've got to do better than that. Because math is very important. Math teaches students how to solve problems, and that's a career development issue there too. Businesses want graduates to be able to solve problems, and 59% reading, and so we can do better with that as well.
Well, let me ask you then, okay, were there any growth in the reading and math results for 2020-2021 semester?
I think it was around the same. Now, quote me, I think it was around the same. Nothing significant.
Okay.
Nothing significant.
Now, oh, yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Oh, no, you're good. Well, then, what's the average ACT score for the 11th grader at Somerville High School? I know I'm picking on Somerville High School.
I know, because all of our schools are lumped together. And I don't have those numbers. I wish I did, but I don't have those numbers.
Okay.
But I want our district to just keep in mind that colleges around the nation are not focusing heavily on ACTs nor SATs. We need them. We need to monitor the progress. I am just wanting our district to just recognize the fact that it is not a priority for most colleges and universities in the country. It's not. If you look even the world,
yes, ma'am.
It's not. The best schools in the world do not focus on standardized testing. They use it as a gauge, but not as a bottom line for getting into college and being successful. Because businesses don't ask that on the interview questions when they hire you. So we want to stay away from pressuring our teachers to teach to the test, because we are in the business of preparing students to be successful for the long term. And teaching to the test does not do that.
What are the things that you want to alleviate the teachers from actually doing that
Well,
puts pressures on them?
yes, yes. Well, they really are evaluated highly on those test scores. They really are. It's pressure. Teachers need to do what they're trained to do, to be creative, to give students what they need in order to succeed. And so I think that's the most important thing right now. If we give them comparable pay, because they're making, a recent study that I looked at, they're making about close to 20% less than others who have the same education. So we need to get that up and support them with their time.
And I want to get back to that in just a second. But let me ask you, speaking of which, okay, what's the average years of experience as for a teacher, say at Joseph Arapai Elementary?
3 years.
Okay.
3 years. The average is 3 years.
And speaking of that elementary, what is the reading and math proficiency there?
I don't have those numbers. I wish I could. I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't have the reading and proficiency there.
Okay.
But I do know the overall right now is 59%
Now,
for reading and 53% for math.
Math. Okay, got that. Yes, ma'am. So let me ask you this, Dr. Young. Okay, what educational models do you hope DDT will actually use in the future for those underperforming schools in the district?
The model would be definitely related to career development.
Okay.
It would definitely be career. I looked at the Department of Education does have, some good out standards and a good framework for helping schools in South Carolina and of course with DD2 to succeed. And they've outlined some stuff that we want to produce world-class knowledge, because the 21st century will require that world-class skills, and the three things, and then that life and career characteristics. So whatever model that we pursue, they have to have those three components according to what we're shooting for. That's our goal. And I agree with that. I think our students should be prepared to compete on every level. And if we don't have that world-class view to understand that our students going to have to be problem solvers, they're going to have to know how to resolve conflict, they're going to know how to know how to work in groups.
Sure.
If they don't have those transferable skills, communication skills, if they don't have those skills, we're going to be left behind. We are going, and so we have to do a better job of quantifying, doing that exit, these type of skills.
And Dr. Young, what other transferable skills do you want those students in DD2 to be learning right now, actually?
Communication would be great. We will be, if elected to the board for the next 4 years, we will be working and devising programs, resources, and for Generation Z. And Generation Z, a special group of people, they have many wonderful characteristics, and it'll be our responsibility to guide them. Generation Z has not lived on this earth without technology, without the benefit of technology. So we have got to keep up with that. That's a wonderful attribute. But we've got to guide that and make sure that they understand that communication, verbal communication and written communication is very important. And developing a relationship, a professional relationship with your teachers and your professors will help you. So those are the things, those are the transferable skills that's going to get them you know, get them through and help them to be successful, because businesses say if you have those, they'll teach you the rest. You see, they're willing to teach you.
Willing to teach, yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Young, let me ask you this, because I was just thinking about this just a second ago. But where is the achievement gap between minority and non-minority students in District 2?
In terms of percentage, or I think the majority of these, that 34.9%, a high percentage of that would be minority. But let me just say, in our districts, who have 51% Caucasian, and we have the rest, 29.1 or so percent African American or Black, and then 10% and rising would be Hispanic, and the rest is Asian, you know, divided between Asian and Pacific Islander. So that gives you, you know, an idea. So that's where we are.
Yes, ma'am. And speaking of rising, you know as well as everybody else knows that Dorchester County per se is actually growing by the day.
Yes. 38, I think 30, now the numbers say 38, 39 per day. Families per day. So
for families, okay. So how do you hope the district will keep up with that growth with smart growth?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but the delay here in the technology. But how do you hope DD2 will keep up with that growth that is with smart growth?
Well, you know, if we all communicate, we've got to be able to communicate. I mean, the board members really need to maintain consistent communication and partnership with county council, with town council, with the economic development board, the realtors. I mean, the folks that issue licensure and everything, because all of these people, particularly council, will, you know, help us get the money. We need land. If we're growing, we're going to have land for new schools. We're going to have resources. So we've got to keep on the population growth. We got to keep on top of those, and we can only do that through partnership and engagement, and helping folks to raise money for our students.
Okay, let me ask you this, Dr. Young. What current private and public partnerships do you want DD2 to actually take an initiative and to take on?
Well, you know, we have the Education Foundation, and they're doing a wonderful job. So we definitely need partnerships with them. But most importantly, our parents. Parents have an awesome responsibility in terms of motivating their children. And we have a responsibility to listen to our parents, because they know our children. I think any interaction with their children, parents should be involved.
So speaking of which, how much does DD2 actually spend on per pupil?
I think it's $9,000. It's over now $9,000, and I don't know how that's, you know, but we need more. I know that. I keep hearing we need more. It's over 9,000, 9,798, along those lines.
And so, how many district students actually graduate on time?
Oh, on time. That's a great question. You know, there are variables there when you think about on time, because here we're in a situation where we don't have that career development piece being fostered from kindergarten to 8th grade. So they're making decisions, and we don't know how they're making those decisions, because we haven't given them, you know, the resources and the education that they need in order to make decisions for the next 4 years. And they can change directions. I mean, they can revisit every year. So, but every time you change, that means your courses change as well. So if it depends on the track that you're in, and when you're slated to graduate, So there's some variables in there.
Let me ask you this, and I want to go off topic for just a second. But speaking of obviously, on that track, do you know how many new schools are currently being built in Dorchester District 2?
We just had a new school recently. So we've got 25 schools now. So we just around the corner from my house, we've got a new school. So we're keeping up with the growth, but we need money. We need more money, and I think that if we can quantify things more, lend that voice to workforce education and development, and foster that, quantify the improvements and where these students are going, where the scholarships are coming from, and are they being used, that type of thing. And facilitate that career and technology center, take that to the next level, I think we will be well on our way to not only helping DD2, but the state. When one district is elevated, you elevate the state.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. You had me thinking there just for a second. But where exactly are the scholarships coming from?
Right. The scholarships are, they're coming from schools. And, we have South Carolina scholarships, the Hope Scholarship, the Life Scholarship. That's where they're coming from. They come from schools. They can come from organizations. They can come from groups. They can come from individuals. It's all lumped in there. But what I'd like to see is how many of those really come through that career and technology center. So they come from a variety of avenues, but those are the most popular. They come from the federal government, the grants.
Yes, ma'am. And how many of those district DD2 students, that is, are actually concurrently participating in STEM or STEAM?
I don't know the exact number that's participating in STEM. But let me think. No, don't know the exact number that's participating in STEM. The science and technology.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have those numbers before me. I'm sorry.
No worries. Now, where in the district, Dr. Young, do you see or hear actually an increase in student achievement?
Achievement as in any specific area, or just overall?
Overall student achievement.
That's hard to say. That's hard to say. My focus is on that workforce education and development. But since we have the Career and Technology Center, and I'm pretty sure we have about 9,000 students participating in that. That's a positive. That's a positive because we have that many students. My only concern about that is how do we have the blessed assurance that these students have enough knowledge to know that this is the right avenue for them? That's my only concern. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And I wanted to ask you this earlier, but let me ask you this right now. What is the retention rate for teachers in Dorchester District 2?
The retention rate, the overall retention rate, I'm not sure, but I think we at one point needed about 37 or so teachers. And that's not bad, but still, just like the rest of the country, we are suffering because of COVID. Teachers are dropping, like flies. They really need a voice. We're losing good teachers because I don't think it's largely because of the money. I think that's a high percentage leave because of the money, but I think many teachers leave because they feel like they're not supported. that they're not heard, that they don't have a voice at the decision-making table. And I am just I'm repeating what I've heard, and I'm also repeating what I've read from research from the state Teachers Association, and they have tons of research. They're the people that are in the trenches. They're doing the work. So it would behoove us to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, I know. You just talked about it. It's not about the money, according to some people. But let me ask you this: speaking of the state, how has administrative costs effectively killed teachers' pay here in the state of South Carolina?
Could you repeat that? How has
administrative costs effectively killed teachers' pay in this particular state?
Well, administrative costs. You mean the fact that they sometimes have to use their own dollars to support
you can talk about
classroom?
That,
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, they already make nearly 20% below anyone that has the same education. And then they have to use, some of their dollars to get their classroom in shape. That shouldn't be. That should not be. To prepare for our students to come to their classroom, they have to use their own dollars. I think that's cruel and unusual punishment for folks that really are doing what they love and what they feel that their passion, they're called to do. So we've got to do something about that.
And I have less than a minute, but let me ask you one last question. How should the district, DD2 that is, increase retention of effective principals?
Of effective principals. Well, that happens during the screening process. Interviewing, asking the right questions, making sure that you get input and feedback from the right people on the team, and making sure that they have a passion for what they're doing, that they are not using this position. I mean, I'm all for advancement, but make sure that DD2 is their primary focus, that they're not just, coming through. Now, the board does not hire principals. Right. The superintendent does.
Right.
We don't hire and fire folks. The superintendent does that.
Yes, ma'am.
And the only person that we hire is the superintendent. And we have a wonderful new superintendent.
Right.
So it's time for us to elevate our game.
Dr. Hester Young, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you very much. Then tell your folks they can find me at votedrhesteryoung.com. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.